Hello and welcome to my channel. With Break the Ice event coming our way, it's time to introduce the Michael Jackson of Arknights, Gnosis. Gnosis is a 6-star Hexer supporter, and this archetype's trait lets Gnosis deal ranged arts damage with his basic attacks. Looking at his stats, he has slightly higher HP than the other Hexer supporters: average attack, average defense, a good amount of resistance, average redeployment time, low DP cost and an average attack speed. His stats are pretty average, not too bad. Next up are his talents. His first talent states that his attacks inflict cold for 1 second. Enemies with cold receive 25% fragile effect, and if they are frozen, they'll receive a whopping 50% fragile debuff. Frozen enemies will also have their resistance lowered by 15 due to the mechanic, an extremely powerful talent. Moving on to his second talent, it states that all Carlin commercial operators gain status resistance 10 seconds after deployment. Status resistance lowers the duration of stun, cold and frozen by 50%. Gnosis himself will get the buff, a nice addition. Now, if you think this video is helpful, do give my channel a sub, it helps a ton. Next up are his skills. His first skill lets him hit the enemy twice, dealing critical damage, thanks to the first talent where his attacks inflict chill. This allows Gnosis to freeze the enemy instantly. His skill 1 is the most consistent source of freeze, a decent skill, but his other skills are much better options. This skill has a low SP cost. Moving on to his second skill, it is a skill with charged effect. Gnosis will deal a burst of AoE arts damage and inflicts all enemies with cold for 4 seconds, and the charged effect freezes all enemies in range instead. This skill is a great stalling skill and is very spammable thanks to the low SP cost. However, the duration of the cold and freeze is a little too short for other operators to make use of the fragile effect, so not the best debuffing skill in his kit, but still a strong skill nonetheless. Lastly, we have his third skill. It gives Gnosis a huge attack speed buff, multi-target to up to 2 enemies, and if enemies are frozen, they will remain in that state for the rest of the skill's duration. After the skill ends, all frozen enemies receive a big burst of arts damage. Gnosis will also prioritize enemies who aren't frozen in range. Wow! What a solid skill! The duration of the freeze is long enough for your damage dealers to do some serious damage, and the burst of arts damage at the end is also extremely strong. This skill is Gnosis's signature skill and is the best skill to use on him if you're looking for debuff. It has an average SP cost. So, should you pull and build Gnosis? I'd say he's an operator worth considering to pull for. The amount of fragile he can inflict is absurd and his damage can be pretty decent. But there are some weaknesses in his kit. For example, his fragile application is centered mainly around freeze. Some enemies in the game are immune to freeze, and this can severely affect his fragile application. The duration of his fragile application can feel a little too short when facing against stronger enemies. Overall, Gnosis is definitely a strong debuffer and is balanced in terms of his strengths and weaknesses. A great operator to consider pulling for if you want a debuffer on your team. He is also extremely popular in the future Integrated Strategies 2 event. And that is all. Hope this video is helpful in introducing Operator Gnosis. I will be making similar videos in the future, so do consider subscribing to stay tuned. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.